Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited to share your story about going from a struggling mom to building this really amazing brand that, many of our listeners might recognize. Your story is so unique how you went from a struggling musician to building this brand. So tell us about how that story unfolded and how you gave yourself permission to go from that struggling artist to where you are now.
Oh, thank you so much for the question. I think the catalyst for me was really having my daughter and becoming a mom. Up until that point, I had a music career, and then I moved to Toronto. And then when I was in Toronto, I was waitressing while doing my music career, and it was really a slog. And I remember just having this feeling, even a couple weeks ago, when I was describing where I was before DIY mom to where I am now. It's like, yeah, I was a pregnant waitress in Toronto. And then I had my daughter. And within the next year, I knew that I needed to make a big change in my life. The situation was not healthy, the situation I was in Toronto. And so when I was able to move back to Nova Scotia, by a stroke of luck or the grace of God or whatever it was, all the stars aligned and I was able to come home to Halifax and start fresh. And I was just kind of thinking like, what am I going to do with my life now that I'm back in Halifax? I'm responsible for this child. Now I have to prioritize how I'm going to bring in an income and provide for her. And I really didn't want to be sleeping on hotel floors and driving all the way across the country back and forth all the time with a little baby. So I thought it
Mhm.
was time to shift from my music career to something else. And I had several friends that were working in the film industry. And one of those friends invited me to come down to assist them in a casting call. And I remember he offered me $100 to come and help him for the day. I said, sure. At the end of the day, he said, you're the best casting assistant I've ever had. Here's $150. And then I spoke to the owners of Egg Studios. It's where I ended up working for a few months. And they said, come in tomorrow, we'll give you $250. So all of a sudden I was going from, a $100 job to a $250 job. And before I knew it, I was on payroll for $1,000 a week. And I just couldn't believe it. I don't think I had made $1,000 in a week ever as a waitress. So I was quite thrilled with that income and the consistency of having like a 9 to 5 job and going to the office and being creative. And I just loved the film industry so much. Through my time at AG and working in film and television and commercials, it just got me thinking about what would my brand be? And at the time, like the marketing industry was starting to shift into this sort of branded content marketing, which we now call influencer marketing. And so that just got me thinking about like, what's my brand? And as a young single mom, as someone who has always had my hand in lots of artistic projects, somebody that did art directing and set design and was constantly DIYing things and grew up in a family that flipped houses before flipping was a thing. I really felt like I could do a lot of things to fix up my own living situation, make my home a better place, make my house a prettier space on a single mom budget and show people how I do it. And that's how I came up with the concept of DIY mom. And I drew a logo and I built a website and then I just started posting videos and sharing it on my YouTube page. And from there, I got asked by Bell 5 TV1 to create a TV series called DIY Mom. And I was so lucky to do 5 seasons of that show. Just access TV, not like a big budget, not a big audience or anything, but it was enough for me to get more brand deals, more people supporting me through my renovations, the exposure to build my brand and create more of an audience. And so I just like walked through whatever door was opening for me and just try to make it the best possible situation for me and my daughter and to create more opportunity to work and make some money and make some income. And luckily, that whole time I was working in film and television a little bit on the side. So I'd get a couple days here and there and make enough money to kind of carry me over while I was building this new dream of
Mhm.
DIY mom. And so that's really how it all kind of shaped up.
I love that story. I mean, especially. somebody in your situation might feel very like, isolated and without a lot of opportunity, and all of these things came along, and instead of resisting it, you just kept allowing the doors to open and see where it would lead. And I think that that's a beautiful reminder for all of us to, accept and receive, the opportunities that are out there for us, because I think there's so much opportunity for everyone. It's just not someone who's had a show and has built a brand. And so many times people see the finished product and think it was easy. And oh, you might have just, all of these things just unfolded for you. But I'm sure there were some really tough times that really built resilience for you. And so, can you recall a time when you felt like you weren't sure how you're going to keep going, but you found the strength within yourself to be resilient and continue?
Mm. Well, there was a time when I first started working in the film industry, and I was working at a not-for-profit doing marketing assistance for a film festival. And I was just surrounded by men that were very against any ideas that I put forward. It was very frustrating for me. I felt like I had a lot of creative energy that I wanted to put out there. Um, and I think I realized from that process of having my ideas turned down and rejected so many times that if I felt like it was a good idea, I kind of needed to make it happen for myself. It was the exact same thing with DIY Mom. I remember taking it to a film production company and thinking like maybe you could pitch this to HGTV or we could make, a bigger budget show. And they just said, I just don't think DIY mom's original enough. You're not unique enough. There's all kinds of DIY moms out there. What makes you special? And I kind of thought, well, actually, I think the fact that there's a bunch of DIY moms out there makes it what brings the value because there's a lot of people that can relate to this. So getting those no's and getting turned down many times, it was discouraging, but I always felt like if I can believe in myself, trust in myself, and I know that the one asset I have is me, and I can't really control other people, but I can control what I do. So I just kept putting the energy into the things that I thought that I could do myself.
Mhm.
And it just kind of comes full circle to what DIY mom is all about. It's this sort of making it happen in this do-it-yourself fashion. So whether it's like being a mom and being forced to be a single mom and having to be do motherhood on my own, or if it's renovating and building a house and having to do that on my own because I've been single and I didn't have a partner, I was just willing to roll my sleeves up and do the work. And a lot of the times I didn't have income necessarily from DIY mom. It wasn't until my house would sell that I would get some income. So I also became very used to this sort of having money in the bank and then seeing it go down to zero and then rebuilding and coming back down. And I think that's just the mentality of an entrepreneur. If you can handle the influx of not having a paycheck or not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from, um,
Mhm.
you kind of have the chutzpah to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I really love how you connected the dots, and that, yeah, DIY mom is not just a show, it's a mindset.
Mm,
How we have to be resourceful and resilient and keep going and really make things happen for ourselves. I really think that that's such a beautiful picture, in that so many times we feel like we have to wait for an opportunity, or conditions aren't right for us to do X, but we really can empower ourselves through our resourcefulness, and hearing inspiring women like yourself that give us permission to take those opportunities. And I love that. And it's so inspiring that you were a single mom through this time. I mean, I was a military spouse, and at times I had to be a single mom, and I was raised by a single mom. So I have a lot of compassion for that role. Um,
mhm,
so you have to do that on a whole new level. But let's talk about how DIY Mom became more than a series. It's like a movement, it's like that mindset that I was talking about. So what do you think it is about DIY Mom that resonates so much with your audience?
Well, just taking it back to that sort of make it happen mantra that I have. When I was growing up and my dad would drop me off at school in the morning, he would say to me, make it happen. And I didn't
Mm,
know that that would become a mantra that would follow me my entire life. And so I think that the thing that I constantly tell my audience and people that follow me and that watch the show is that I'm not embarrassed to fail and fail on camera and do something that embarrasses myself or takes me down a peg or shows my weakness or shows my vulnerability or my inexperience. And over the
mhm,
years of renovating, of contracting things myself, of designing things myself, I've made tons of mistakes. And I'm not shy about saying that I have made mistakes. And so I've either had to fix those mistakes or find a way to cover it up to make things look beautiful again or make it work. Um, and so I think just giving permission to people to fail and putting myself out there as the example of somebody that's not embarrassed to show my struggles. I hope that that encourages other women that they don't have to put this persona of perfection on.
mm,
Oftentimes, you see women making excuses as to why they can't do something. Uh, because if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. And just like your title of your podcast, Good Enough, I think that there's so many things in life where we have to say, okay, that's good enough. I'm going to move on to the next thing to keep ourselves moving forward instead of getting stuck in this perfection cycle that holds you back in life and keeps you from moving forward. And so you kind of have to let go of things
yeah.
along the way. And so, what I hope that I do with my audience is I give them permission to just let go of perfection. I've always said perfection is boring anyway.
Well, they say if you in Hollywood, if they want an audience to hate a character, they write them as perfect.
Ah.
So-
Well, I hope that I'm likable then.
We're all imperfect, so we all have a level of likability for sure. I love that. And that's what this podcast is all about. And, that's why I knew you'd be such a great guest that's aligned with my audience who's learning how to push through that. Um, Another interesting uh, thing about you is that you call yourself a thought leader in feminist entrepreneurship. And I think that's so interesting, and that's an emerging, that's a thing. And I think it should be. But what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to put in practice every day for the women and moms who are listening?
I think what it means to be a thought leader is that I'm an ideas person, first off, and I like to come up with fresh ideas and be a bit of a trailblazer.
Mhm.
And sometimes that means that I'm not going to profit from my ideas. The person that comes behind me is going to profit.
Mm,
So oftentimes, maybe I've seen the legwork that I do perhaps trailblaze or open up a path for another woman that
mhm,
they can become successful. And so being a champion of that means that you can't get mad at the woman that comes behind you and does really well
mhm,
off of the platform that you built. For example, when I first started doing influencer marketing or branded content on social media, it wasn't something that people out on the East Coast were familiar with. So
mhm,
I was starting at the start of this whole, this category of marketing that opened up. So I would make a lot of cold calls. I would reach out to brands and say, "Do you want to partner with me or give me this thing for my house?" And I will make a video in exchange for the product. Sometimes I got yeses, sometimes I got nos. I remember asking a building company in Atlantic, Canada, if they wanted to sponsor me and work with me, and they said, "Well, no, we don't get very many. Uh, we don't find our customers come from Instagram or online. All of our customers come from flyers." And so they're like, "We really put our marketing into flyers." Now, this is a pretty old school group of men that are running this building company. And so I tried to pitch the vision to them. They didn't really catch it. Fast forward to, I guess, how many years have I been doing this? Like 9 or 10 years. And I see them posting all kinds of content, using all kinds of influencers, female influencers, using power tools, doing the things that I was saying, I'm going to do it as a woman. I'm going to build something as a woman. And you can show people that women also should go and buy building supplies. Kind of
Mm,
that was the pitch. And so now when I see them sponsoring and working with all these other influencers and they're not working with me, it can feel a bit like a rejection or like it kind of
right.
hurts. You're like, I told you this idea. I pitched this to you.
I
And then
planted that seed.
you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you went off and you spent money with other people and not with me. So
Hmm.
that's a perfect example of being a feminist thought leader or an entrepreneur is that sometimes the things that you came up with first will go on to do great things for other people. And
Hmm.
you just have to kind of let those go and say, something else is going to come to me, and that's okay. If it wasn't meant for me, like if that didn't come to me, it wasn't meant for me, and something else will be there.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that I try to keep in mind. Now, the other thing is that I have a friend that is a female entrepreneur, and she is just so sick of the term female entrepreneur. She's like, just call me an entrepreneur. I don't need to be a female
Hmm.
entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And so I can maybe see that that is going to drop for me at some point, or maybe hopefully I'll stop having to acknowledge the female part
Hmm.
because it can be feel frustrating and it can feel like you are being judged or maybe things are a little harder for you based on the fact that you are female in an industry that is, male dominated.
Hmm.
Um, so it would be nice to just be accepted for as an entrepreneur and not have to have the female sort of
Hmm.
caveat or.
Mm. That's a really interesting conversation. And that's something I've given some thought to. And I think, maybe where it's going is that maybe your business style is going to kind of be how you kind of are known. Like, are you more aggressive or soft or, what? Because there are women in the entrepreneur space who are, just as maybe assertive and aggressive as their male counterparts that, whereas for me as a female entrepreneur, I really gravitate towards those women who are kind of softer and not as push, 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 we got to do this right now. I incorporate my family and how am I taking care of myself? So I can see that being a really beneficial conversation across genders because, really doing what works for you, regardless of who you are. I think, doing it on your terms is really important. So I think that's a really interesting conversation. And what I also hear you saying is that in the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of competition. And especially as women, I think we need to support each other and to champion one another. And even if somebody is kind of benefiting from something that you pitch, you're cheering them on. And I think that that's really important in the entrepreneurial space too.
Hmm. Yeah. I just think that we can't have a scarcity mindset
Right,
as entrepreneurs. I don't think it benefits you when
right,
you think that there's only so much work going around and there's only
right.
so much opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, I think that means that you're just not being creative enough or you're not thinking outside the box enough because there should be plenty of work for everybody. It's just
Yeah,
about what is your offering? What is your value proposition? How can I
right,
pivot or make myself more valuable to the consumer, to my viewers, to the brands that I partner with?
right.
What can I be doing better to be more efficient and to actually do my mission, like keep going with my mission and my mission statement, but do it more effectively.
Right. Well, as you've told your story, obviously you're a very creative person, and sometimes balancing business and family, it can be really hard to stay creative. So, how do you find that source of creativity? How do you make that space for yourself in your business?
Mm. I do think of myself as an artist first off, and I am a storyteller. And I think that's why the transition from musician to content creator worked for me is because I was used to telling a story even with music. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I can transfer all those skills are transferable. Now, sorry, your the second part of your question was what was
Yeah,
sorry, can
how
you
do you make space for that
yeah.
creativity?
Yeah. So how I make space for that creativity is that I outsource work that I think other people can do just as well as me, because there are certain things that I think that only I can do, versus things that require a lot of time and energy, but do not allow me to be creative. So I try to outsource and delegate as much as possible to other people that are willing to work for me or to help me, so that I can do the things that only I can do, like write the script, be on camera, speak, sell the product, um, post the product, write the captions, build the blog, the things that are more creative that are specific to me, those are harder to get somebody else to capture my voice, right? So it's easier for me to do that. And the things that are not as easy for me, like bookkeeping, accounting, or time consuming things like the laundry or food prep or tidying the house, if I can have support in those areas, I lap it up and try to get it as much as possible so that I can be more creative. And then I just try to carve out some space for nothingness or, walking when I'm not injured. I have an Achilles rupture at the
Oh
moment.
gosh.
But like, sitting in a sauna, doing my workout, going for a walk, brainstorming with friends, being creative and having people that you love being creative with. Those things kind of fill my bucket creatively, and they help me to expand and think about more things that I can be doing or how to bring in income. So that is probably the biggest thing that I often tell women that are entrepreneurs that are feeling so overwhelmed and that they can't do it all or they don't have enough time in the day and that they're so depleted and burnt out that they can't even dream or scheme or think about what's going to
Yeah.
happen in the future. I'm like, what can you give to somebody else, even if you have to pay somebody to do it and it feels like that is a big ask right now to spend the money on paying somebody. I have always found that even when I paid somebody to do things that I didn't want to spend my time on, I was able to bring in more income because I had time to do the things that only I can do and the only things
Yeah.
that I am good at. So that increased my value. And then I could charge more for the services that I can only provide.
1,000%. I try to remind listeners all the time of that. I mean, especially in the US, we have this hustle culture. We always have to be productive. We can't sit down and rest. And, especially as moms, we think we have to do all of the things all the time and please all of the people all of the time. And, and it's not sustainable. You're just going to burn out. And so I love that you give us that reminder. And, yeah, so important.
Mm-hmm.
So we often see, the glossy version of influencers and renovations online, but behind the scenes, I'm sure it can be really stressful. What's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn in entrepreneurship that maybe people haven't seen play out or realize, is an aspect of what you do?
I think just constantly being questioned if I'm capable or able to do something because of my, perhaps lack of experience or being a female. Um, I often will find that when I'm dealing with men or on the phone ordering things from suppliers or doing things for the job site, they'll often say, you have to talk to your contractor about that. And I'm like, I'm the contractor. So, I'm asking you to tell me what I need to do to make this happen, or um, and then I have always found actually that when I change the pitch of my voice on the phone and speak in a lower or a deeper tone, I get more respect, or they don't question that I'm the contractor. I'm like, I'm the contractor. Um, and so I thought that I always think that that's kind of hilarious that I have to kind of change my voice when I'm dealing
Mhm.
with people. I also think there's a big challenge when you are an artist and you care about your art. Everything is
Mhm.
personal when you're an artist. And so it can be hard for me to manage my emotional attachment to things
Mhm.
when I need to perhaps be a bit more professional or I need to do a better job of communicating with a neighbor or with a subcontractor. And so that can be a challenge because um, I'm specifically more geared towards the artistic side of things. And so you can't really be an artist without feeling deeply.
Mm.
And or a deep feeler, uh, sometimes those feelings come out in a way that's not helpful or productive, maybe makes you look a little bit crazy or not necessarily good at the job that you're supposed to be doing. So that has been a lesson that I've learned over the years as to how to have a low resting heart rate, how to deal with people in a very calm, collective manner, and how to communicate in an effective way that doesn't like leave a bitter taste or a bad taste in other people's feelings. Because we know when we're in the public eye that everybody is scrutinizing us even that much more. And
Mm.
so there's not a lot of grace or understanding for people that are doing what I'm doing to say, well, I reacted that way because I'm an artist and I'm sensitive and I'm emotional and I care about my art. That, I can't really use that as an excuse.
Mm.
So just having to practice meditation, mindfulness, or being prayerful in my life, in my day-to-day life, so that when I am met with these challenges, interpersonal relationships or professional relationships, that I can
Mm.
act in a way that is that is kind and professional and polite. And that's the other thing with being a woman is that if you're not polite, you get judged a lot harsher. So the pleases and the thank yous are almost like a requirement as a female entrepreneur, but you don't hear really people criticizing male entrepreneurs that they didn't say please or thank you enough.
Mm. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And, right or wrong, it is a reality. And so, just realizing that that's something we all should be cognizant of as entrepreneurs is our emotional control because we're leaders, whether we think of ourselves as that or not. And especially, like you said, that's got to be very difficult and a lot of pressure sometimes to be in the public eye and know that you're being scrutinized that much more. So kudos to you for being mindful about it and trying to do the best that you can because we're all human at the end of the day and that's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk to you about, the legacy that you're leaving for your daughter and what you're modeling for her. And sometimes I talk to moms who use motherhood as a limitation to starting and growing their business. So talk about how you maybe incorporate her or, just have her observe what you're doing to kind of empower her and show her what's possible.
Yeah, thank you. I think that she sees a lot of what I do and the amount of work that I have to put in to do what I do. She's getting a little older now. She's 12. She just started junior high. So I'm now going to be paying her to do some of the jobs that I would normally pay other people to do. And I also, try to get her to work alongside me whenever possible in terms of like construction cleanup, site cleanup, or just doing things around the house to be helpful. And, maybe this is controversial. Maybe people don't think that they should be paying their kids to do chores around the house. But if I would be paying somebody else to come and do laundry for us, then I think that if my daughter is looking for a little extra cash to go out for lunch with her friends or whatever, she can do some chores around the house and earn some money to support her lifestyle. So teaching her the value of a dollar and money and that work ethic. I mean, I started working when I was 12. My very first job, I worked for 30 days on the set of The Scarlet Letter as a background actor. And I think I got like 16 or $17 an hour. And I was working for 30 days straight or 10 hours a day. You know, it probably wasn't even that much. It was probably like $11 an hour because I think at the end of the month I had like $1,800 and I was very excited about this extra money that I made. So as of grade seven, I had already started paying for clothes and extra things that I wanted. So I would hope that I would teach my daughter the same thing, that it's good to work and to make your own money and to understand the value of a dollar. And I think because I always knew um, that some things would pay, some things wouldn't pay, and that I would want to do some unpaid work just to maintain my creativity. I was always looking for ways to make that possible for me. So even as a young student in university and just right out of university, I was trading paintings for dental work and things. I was always working on the barter system. Like, what can I offer if I don't have any money? Oh, I can offer a painting or some art. And so I would paint or make art, and I would trade it for fillings and dental cleanings and things that I couldn't afford as a young woman. So um, I think that just that I that though that the idea of a value of a dollar, I also do work with charities, and I think that it's so important to teach our kids to think about the world outside of just our own small world. We can
Hmm.
get really wrapped up in superficial things,
Hmm.
in keeping up with the Joneses and seeing what everybody else has. And the things that we watch on television and the things that we consume can really affect how we think about how we want to spend our money. And so if you're only thinking about yourself and like, oh, I want to spend the money on me, I want to do these things to keep up my house, keep up my looks, keep up my wardrobe, have a fancier car, then these are, they're in the long run, they're kind of meaningless things. So how do we create a sense of meaning that goes beyond just like the superficial things that the world tells us should matter most to us? And
Hmm.
so by doing work with charitable organizations, by offering my time and services to people who can't afford it, by inviting people over for dinner, by having the neighbors over, by offering to help a neighbor when they are out of town by taking their garbage out or shoveling their driveway in the winter. I think that these are all the qualities and characteristics that I want to teach my daughter that have a lot of value. Maybe they don't make you rich or more beautiful or famous, but they help you realize that relationships, people, um, and those are the things that really matter most. So spreading love and bringing more love into the world to make it a better place, that those are things that I hope that my daughter will learn from me as well.
Yeah, I love that I was going to ask you about your philanthropy and your work with charitable organizations because I too think that it's so important for us to think outside of ourselves. And, one of my favorite things to be able to do is to employ women in other countries that wouldn't have an opportunity to work at home and take care of their children. It's like they would either have to do one or the other, work or not have children, kind of thing. And so it gives them a stake in their relationship and it gives them opportunity and powers their life. So, I love
Mm.
that you talk about that. There's so much more outside of ourselves to being an entrepreneur, especially as a mom, we're modeling so much for our children, and we can have a lot of impact. So I love that. So for the mompreneur listening right now who feels like she's kind of at her breaking point and not maybe seeing a lot of opportunity for herself, what's one piece of wisdom you would like her to walk away from this conversation with?
Yeah. Um, so sometimes we can have passions or things that we are passionate about, but we're not necessarily talented in those areas. And so I would just ask for feedback from people like, what is my talent? What do you see me at my talent? And then maybe you need to shift or do what you're talented at. Because of my work in South Africa, working with young kids that have no opportunities and teaching them to be entrepreneurs, one of the things that we get them to do is to write down what they think their talents are. They flip the page over and they hand it to a friend, and their friend writes down what they think they're talented at. And then they can kind of compare it to see, like, okay, what do I think I'm talented at? What do other people think I'm talented at? And just this, because the idea of following your passion is a very privileged mindset. And often people in other countries that don't have the same opportunity, um, when we tell them to follow your passion, do what you're passionate about, that's a very like Western privileged mindset because passion doesn't always lead to a successful entrepreneurship. So
Mm.
I would just say, like, look at what you're talented at and maybe just reflect and change gears a little bit in that way. And then if you're feeling burnt out or you're doing too much, just don't anymore. Just take some time. Just take some time for yourself. Just do something that requires no brain power, that you can completely relax and just see if fresh ideas can come. Because sometimes when we are burnt out, it just everything feels like it's too much, like you can't handle things. So at that point, you just really need to step back and say, I need to take a break. I need a day off. I need a vacation. I need a day to do nothing and just refill that bucket.
Mhm.
Um, because when you get to the point of burnout, like sometimes it just the whole engine just shuts down and
Oh yeah.
you can't go any further. And so before that happens, even just try to be aware of that and give yourself permission to take a day for yourself.
Hmm. Those are wonderful reminders. And I think that that's particularly powerful to ask other people what they think you're good at, because I find, especially for moms, and this has been true for myself, it's like I take for granted what I'm good at, and it's just innate. And I think, well, can't everybody do that? Or like nobody would value that because, So I think that's really powerful to also focus on what is it that you're good at that people need. So you're just not creating something out of like this passion space
Mhm.
that nobody needs or wants. So that can lead to a lot of wasted time and effort. But Rebecca, it's been wonderful talking to you and sharing your experience. I'm sure it's going to inspire so many listeners. Um, if someone wants to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they do that?
Yeah. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram. I'm very much responsive on my DMs, and you can follow me at diymom.ca to see updates about my new projects, to see recaps of old projects, to look through my feed, and it'll even connect you to my YouTube or my website or anything that you want to watch. So that's a great way to connect with me on a personal level. If you want to just go back and watch all 5 seasons of DIY Mom, you can stream it on Binge TV. You can also stream it on my YouTube channel. So, whatever way you like to get your content, you can find me.
I love it. I wish you would have been around when I was a teenager because I was obsessed with this old house in Bob Vila. And, but I didn't see anybody in the space who looked like me doing that kind of thing. So I love that you're a trailblazer in that regard and so many other ways. So thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you very much.
much.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I really appreciate your time today.
Same here, Rebecca. Thanks so much.